Just as Sir Duncan and those he stood for deserved justice, so did the climax of this all-time great short story, and the consensus is pretty overwhelming that the trial of Seven and the tragedy therein did indeed receive justice on screen. Put more simply, we knew it was coming, but it still hit so hard. They did such a great job with it. It's a joy, despite all the sadness and how emotional it is, to have something so legendary, enshrined this way in our fandom, permanently or semi-permanently. Again, it's just done such a great job of keeping to the novel, which is done so well in the first place, and that's a recipe for success. Lines like this: a tall knight stood above him, in black armor dinted and scarred by many blows. Prince Baelor, the scarlet dragon on his helm, had lost a head, both wings, and most of its tail. Your Grace, Dunk said, I am your man. Please, your man. My man. Black Knight put a hand on Raymond's shoulder to steady himself. I need good men, Sir Duncan. The realm... His voice sounded oddly slurred. Perhaps he'd bit his tongue. Yeah, it's works so well as a companion to what we see on the screen, or vice versa. What we see on screen works so well as a companion to what we read. They can work as the inner thoughts of these characters as those moments are playing out on screen. So... we've got a lot to talk about, so let's do that. All that and more on this episode of History of Westeros podcast. Hello and welcome back, everybody. Episode 5 is in the books, and people are already talking about it as if it's one of the best episodes of a Game of Thrones show of all time. I can see why. We were hoping it would play out this way. I couldn't have actually predicted it would have gone this well, so expectations have been exceeded, I'd say. And that's a great thing. You can catch our last 2 breakdowns at 6 o'clock on Monday, just like these other ones are. Episode 6 breakdown, and then we'll have a season wrap-up type episode. We, of course, still have our review episodes on 5:30, or at 5:30 on Friday. We've got one more of those. So catch us this Friday for a review preview stream of the upcoming final episode. And then after that, stay tuned for a game of Dunk and Egg on Twitch over at twitch.tv/History of Westeros. Sean, are you drinking some sort of mournful beverage today, or some sort of violent beverage today?
You know, I did put a V8 juice into here, but still with the green Magic Mind and also a Baja Blast Mountain Dew. So the red and green is giving it more of a... the red's coming through, but it's kind of brownish.
That is pretty violent.
It's much tastier than what was ever in Alistair's wine bag.
Sour ale there? Yeah, good point, good point.
The Queen's Witch's Brew.
That's right. And you got red and green. You got the Fossaways clamoring together in your cup there. If you have questions or comments, hit us up live here on the stream, or email us at westeroshistory@gmail.com, or on any of the other social media platforms. We're pretty much everywhere. We've got a trivia question for you today. We'll give you the answer at the end to this question. Against which foe did Baelor earn the nickname Breakspear? I will give you the answer at the end, along with the context. We also have a poll. This is a very violent poll. Speaking of violence, which injury of Dunk's did you feel the most? Like, which one did you make you cringe or shudder the most? Like, And there's actually more than we could fit here, because there's more than 4 that were pretty nasty, but I tried to pick the 4 that I thought were appropriate. The lance in the side to start it off, then the Morningstar directly to the face that knocked him off his horse. Then we have the knife through the hand that he had to pull out. I'm going to go ahead and say that's mine. And then the double stab in the thigh. Like, he stabbed him, twisted it, pulled it out, and then stabbed him in the same place again. Ah, man, that's painful. Like I said, there's others. There's the whole, he throws his knife into his leg and then pulls it out and tries to hit him in the eye with it, and he almost kind of almost does. Anyway, there's lots. It's very brutal, but it was supposed to be, it was supposed to be gritty like that. We'll get into the details here. Corn Emperor sends a super chat, support for my favorite Westeros. Well, thank you. We've enjoyed having you all with us all season long. It's been, as I said in the intro, better than we could have hoped for. I'm very pleased, and I know a lot of you are as well. This was the second longest episode of the season. Maybe wouldn't have predicted it that way, given the action episodes often have less time, because it's just so much to... Every second of action is more production and training and effort than it is for the other ones. Not that the other stuff isn't hard, but this stuff's on another level. Let's start with our favorite performances. Let's get to that. We can all pretty much, I mean, we kind of talked about this ahead of time. Peter Claffey just, like, he was the best in this one. This was amazing performance by him. He's been great all season long. So we decided to just pick our second favorite. We all kind of just acknowledging that we would all pick him. But we're going to pick our second favorites while acknowledging that Peter was the best. So Sean.
You are.
I am. Okay. I don't have to speak for everybody. We'll just say we all agree that his performance was absolutely outstanding and noteworthy. Maybe not 100% favorite for everybody, though. Sean, take it away.
I'd say Egg. I think that, to be fair, like a lot of times someone's performance, it's not just them, right? There's the context and the editing and all this other stuff. But he did so well that two real outstanding moments when Dunk tells him, don't rob me or I'll hunt you down. He responds with a woof, and it was a good... captured this sort of gravity about what's to happen, but Dunk is still trying to, be light with him, and Egg kind of gets it, but still Egg kind of knows, man, this is, I'm trying to play along with his little jest here, but this is scary, and he looks so small. All these huge men with huge armor on huge horses and this scrawny little boy, but still, I don't know, he's integral to the whole thing. And then later on when, Dunk appears dead and Arian's like, all right, call it, that's it, and Egg's like, wait, that blood curdling scream. Those are both really outstanding moments to me.
Yeah, I agree, Sean. He was really excellent. His range was really good too. That weight was really something. He really did yell. He kind of led us in our, we were him cheering and rooting for Dunk there, like he was our avatar, as if we were all there with him. Shay, what about you?
I just want to say Peter Claffey. I think he deserves it. I want to give him his applause, in my section here, which is that he showed the desperation, the rage. He showed his body language, the way he kind of lumbered about when he describes later. He's like, one moment I felt like I was drunk, another moment I felt like I was dying. He looked like that, the way he held himself. It was just so well done. But my other answer is the other Dunk, Bamber Todd, who I also thought was really, really phenomenal. I think he had this sweetness and vulnerability and this wide-eyed quality that really, really captivated me. And made me think of Egg, made me think of Dunk and Egg's relationship. And yeah, I just thought it was really beautifully done with very little dialogue, really. So giving it to both Dunks.
A double dunk. Can't argue with that. Myself, yeah, certainly, as far as my favorite Dunk moment, I guess I could say the grief at the end. Favorite, it's hard to call it that. He just did such a good job. It was just so heart-rending and such an important moment. But as far as my supporting cast or secondary pick, I suggested Baelor on the notes here in case someone else picked him first, but I'm gonna go ahead and say Arian. Just his exhaustion and just how much he had to put into that. I imagined, like I said a minute ago, the effort to train and do all that. I wrote in the notes that I don't think they had to act quite as much when they were trying to pretend they were exhausted. I bet they actually were exhausted. So that's one thing they didn't have to fake so much. The rest was just pure acting. But there's no way they weren't tired as heck after doing all that over and over, because they had to do it repeatedly. That's how these things work. Yeah. So let's talk about favorite scene or part of a scene. Interpret that how you will. Sean, go for it.
I want to give a general, my first instinct is the appreciation of the shots to the visor. I thought that was a key part of the presentation in the book, is kind of Dunk's perspective. And it was neat to see it here, not just not so much the outside shots of him, but the shots from inside his visor where the screen is, 3/4 blocked out to us. And we're just seeing this sliver of vision like he does. And they did a good job with the audio making it sound kind of muffled and distant from the rest of the world. And I want to stay generally positive, but I was connected to that. I really like how even the mud, when he hits the ground, the mud gets up into the visor in his face, the way that was captured on screen. I was a little disappointed when he cut to the next scene and there was no mud in his helmet. Where did it go? Like, even if he tried to wipe it off with his metal hand, it would, I don't know.
Well, the next scene shows the mud coming out. Like, they do address that.
Yeah, but I'm nitpicking a little bit, and this is an actiony scene, which I tend to nitpick at. And even if I am nitpicking at it, overall, it was really well done. But I, as much as I appreciate all that, there is one other scene that you flickered up, or moment, just a quick image. When Duck gets up and Egg yells and he pulls himself to his feet, and at the last second of that imagery, if he's barely able to stand but readies his sword, that was so outstanding. I thought that, yes, right there. And Arian's like sigh, like, oh, I gotta keep doggone it. Haven't I done enough? This guy's too big. I can't stop him. It was a great image and a great moment.
Well said, well said. O'Shea, you had that morning star flashing through his visor. It didn't occur to me until just now how much that's like the shooting star overhead as he's lying on the ground looking up. And George sort of wrote it like that in the novel, but yeah, I didn't really think about it till now. What about you, O'Shea? What is your favorite scene / subplot or et cetera, however you want to do it?
Mine was the sequence with Dunk following Arlen is what I'm going to say. And I also completely agree with you, Sean, that all of the film work showing it from inside Dunk's helm like helped you like feel so kind of claustrophobic and overwhelmed and all of these things, right? But I think they did that as well in the flashbacks with framing. Like you see like Arlen, the way he looks when he sees Dunk through the window, like you're seeing it from his POV of Dunk biting Alistair's neck, and then he comes out and in the name of the mother, unhand that boy, which is really very much like when Dunk is putting on the persona of knighthood and he's like, stop raping, sir. That's very much what Arlen just did exactly there. Unhand, stop accosting that boy. But the thing I really, really loved about, you also see the framing device because you see Dunk looking through the bars, right, of his room, which is very cell-like, in a way. And so I thought that was beautifully filmed. But then just the whole long sequence that's just kind of narrated by Arlen's Dothraki morning song, where you see young Dunk following him and the music, and there's so much meaning behind like him looking at Roger's helm, between like seeing them leave King's Landing when he was scared to leave King's Landing before, he was reticent to do so, but he just follows after Arlen. I don't know, I thought it was really beautiful and moving, and it just it made me really sad for Dunk that he's in this desperate state. He almost dies, just following him, and he's not willing to kind of show himself to him, right? And so I found it so beautiful. So beautiful.
Yeah. Go ahead,
I had
Sean.
a quick thing to that. In that moment when Dunk was kind of envisioning himself, stop raping, sir. That was, if I remember right, at that moment he was like, oh, maybe I could be a gold cloak. How ironic that the gold cloak was such an awful person, and Dunk maybe is inspired to be a better person,
Right on, yeah. I really love that stuff too, Shay. I'll have my thoughts on it later. I have a few other pieces of context to fill in and some other notes, but my favorite was a very, very small character note that they added that wasn't in the book, or maybe it was in the book, but it was more implied, and they brought it out, and that's Maegor's desperation. Or sorry, Maekar's. I said Maegor. I wrote Maegor, but I meant Maekar's desperation, and that's just him yelling out Arian when Arian is actually injured, because Arian's either breaking even or winning throughout most of the early part of the fight, and then Dunk starts to come back and he gets in that nasty cut into his groin or upper thigh, whatever, and Arian screams out, and Maekar is trying to get to him, and he's yelling, my boy, and that puts a lot more context into him later forgetting, not remembering the blow that killed his brother, and because he's just desperate and trying to get to his son and not thinking about anything else. And it's like, it kind of reminds me of a Cersei. Now, Maekar is no Cersei, but when Joffrey dies and Cersei is holding him in her arms and she's crying and screaming, "My boy!" It's like, well, even as awful as Cersei is, you can still kind of feel for her there, and as awful as Joffrey was, it's still a mother, and it's like that's what's happening here. Whether or not you would feel that way about a child like this, you can understand why this particular man and so many other parents would, no matter how awful their kid is. So I thought that was great, and Maekar's personality came out more there, and it's going to be very useful for the story going forward to have that conflict within him and in general.
So Aziz, a quick question about that. At one point, he kind of like tries to move toward his son, and two knights kind of grab him and stop him.
Baelor and Lionel. Baelor and Lionel.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I was almost certain one was Baelor, but I did not know who the other one was. So yeah.
I definitely have some more to say about that as well later. You can tell that we'll go into later detail on it, but real quickly, most of them weren't trying to kill each other throughout, like the entire 7-on-7. More on that later, yeah. So it starts really quickly, even though it kind of quickly shifts into flashback for quite a long time. There's probably that flashback is easily longer than all the flashbacks from the previous episodes combined. Baelor gives a quick strategy pep talk. It's somewhat similar to the novel, changed a little bit. They get rid of the whole "we'll use tourney lances" thing. I never really liked that in the first place. It's also got done weirdly in the book because Baelor is still a horse, still knocks one of the Kingsguard off their horse with the lance, and it still doesn't break. And this is after the initial charge. So he like takes two people out without breaking the lance that's designed to break. So it's like, what? And his name is Breakspear. It should break. No. Anyway, so I didn't mind them getting rid of that. It's just a little extra thing that takes long. It's kind of can probably be confusing to a lot of audiences. It's a small thing to let go. Anyway, they kept the important lines like, "Is that chivalrous? The gods will let us know." That was changed from Lionel's line to Robin Risling's line, and I'm cool with that too.
Baylor's response to Robert Risling makes more sense too if he understands that he's motivated by his belief in the Seven.
Yes, that's a very good point. And there's that line. He says, "These men will fight savagely," and I believe it's Harold Harding that says, so will we, my lord." And then Beesbury gets his one line, what of the Kingsguard? He says, "Don't take heart, Beesbury. I'll handle the Kingsguard." Proceeds to get killed in the first charge against the Kingsguard. Whoops. So poor Beesbury. And of course, Harding did as well, but which is slightly different than the book, but the only difference is when he dies, not how he dies. So then Baelor says, "Don't die." That's the important thing here, Dunk. It's kind of about you. Be vigilant and all that. So, and then we have, a little back and forth of comedic and seriousness and confusing. Raymond and Dunk are vomiting. Humphrey Harding laughs at them, calls them green boys. Then
we
Lionel
see puking 4 times in this episode.
Right. Then Lionel makes that comment about, "Mother loved you best, huh? Too bad. Men fight harder when their mothers don't love them." And Baylor's kind of like, okay. Humphrey Harding is just very confused. Look at Humphrey's face. He went from laughing about the green boys to like, what? What? He's very confused. I love that face. That should be memed. That face, that confused face. Let's make sure that happens, y'all. Internet, do your job. So I don't quite understand either, though. I'm a little confused as to why he said that then. Like, I kind of agree with him. It's kind of true, but it's a weird time to bring that up.
I think he just thought he felt overconfident, right?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
He's making a little bit of light of it, but I think he's really being that's his real feeling is like, I think you're overconfident here, and I think I'm psychoanalyzing you, and it's because of this. And
Lionel's right. Like, you were taking the Kingsguard too light. Like, you can't necessarily handle all 3 of them. You might be able to handle 1 or even 2 of them, but not all 3 at once. That kind of thing. So I like if you're thinking of it that way, I totally could agree with that. That makes some sense.
I'm not 100% sure why they chose to have Lionel say it, but it does, I don't know, clue in a motif, I guess, because think about how many characters here had I don't know. I think he said whose mother neglects them. I think he said, and depending on how you define neglect, but Dunk didn't have a mother. Arian doesn't have a mother. Egg doesn't have a mother. Like these characters don't have mothers.
It's true.
And, I don't know which of these fight the hardest. I'm not sure, but it seemed like a theme of sorts that they're bringing out here.
It made me really wonder about Lionel. I'm guessing he has some mother problems himself if he's saying this.
Either that or he noticed it in his younger brothers. He's like, oh, mom loved me best, and I can see it in my younger brothers. They fight harder because she didn't. Either way, he's observed it, I think, personally, in one way or another, whether he's the victim or not. I agree. It's too bad we didn't get Raymond's green apple moment, but he does have the green apple shield. So it's there. It's just a part of the story without being spoken to. So we can at least say that much. As you say, Sean, the I'll hunt you down with dogs moment that was great. The way Egg's face goes from smiling, like he's like, yeah, I'm with you, sir, to like when Dunk turns away, his face just, he becomes really serious and grave. And yeah, that's some good acting.
Yeah, and it really was beautiful staging that they did to make the size disparity between them so clear. The shots, like you were mentioning, Sean, where you kind of see Egg from looking up to Dunk there. I just thought, the directing was particularly good in this episode.
Dunk even still had to kind of reach down a little to get the lance from him,
Yeah, that's funny. So the prayer is also in the book. It's L.J. Bennion playing the role as the Septon. In the book, it goes, Lord Ashford Septon had come to the front of the viewing stand and raised his crystal to call the throng to prayer. So here we actually get the prayer. In the book, it's just kind of happening in the background while they're talking about other stuff. And then it transitions quite quickly to the fight. They're like, Dunk puts his helm on. The horses are really rearing. It's a different vibe than the 5-on-5 because that's a pageantry. Even though it's dangerous, this is the horses can sense the mood of their riders, and they know this is real on some level. Something like that.
Can I say?
Go for it.
That even that comment, I was going to talk about your prior comment, but that one now still kind of relates to it. I appreciate that Septon was so young that. This is new to them. This is new to everyone. This hasn't happened in 100 years. Everyone's a little green about this. Some people have seen battle or whatever, but the thing is that Septon was just, basically a kid. And so was Dunk, and so was Egg, and so was Raymond, and even some of these people who are maybe 30 or whatever, it's still kind of relatively naive. They're all a little green. Maybe, a handful of these people aren't totally green, but most of the people in the audience and the Ashford and all these people seeing this real grave violence and this ancient tradition play out. I don't know. I think having a Septon be young kind of reminds us these are like regular people, and this is kind of new and surprising and uncertain for all of them,
That's a good point, because usually you kind of default expect someone older to be in that role, and that's definitely not what they went with here. Guy
with a beard and white hair.
Yeah.
Here we go again.
That's the extreme archetype version or stereotype version. Yeah. And like you said, Sean, I picture Baelor was looking at those old law books trying to find a solution. The Septon was probably like, what's the prayer? You've seen this trope in a bunch of different TV shows where a character who's a priest is like, what am I my sermon about this week? I need a topic for this week. And what do you say at this? I've never done this before. It's like a doctor who's never done a certain operation they've never done before, and they have to do that. Yeah. So a lot of great shots here. There's so many good shots of armor, of the different riders getting ready. Some of them happen so quickly it's hard to tell. But just real quick, the order of the jousters here, or the fighters, Robin, then Raymond, then Lionel, then Baelor, then Dunk, then Harold Harding, Humphrey Harding. I did it again. Humphrey Harding, then Humphrey Beesbury. On the other side, Daron, Stefan, Sir Donald, Maekar, Arian, William Wilde, and Roland Crakehall. So that's a slight change, I believe, because Sir Donald's facing Sir Lionel, which is not in the book, I believe, because Sir Donald kills Beesbury in the book in the first charge. So they're not facing each other this time, so that can't have happened. And the only reason I know that's Sir Donald is for a second there, his helm is off before they're getting started, and that's Sir Donald. Stefan is facing Raymond. Daron is facing Robin. Maekar is facing Baelor. So right away, they're like, this trial's kind of set up for some kinslaying, but and it does happen, though not during the joust. Arian versus Dunk, Willem Wilde versus Harold Harding, who apparently kills him. You can see pretty quickly in the joust, right, almost right away, before Dunk is knocked from his horse, that Harold Harding has been bashed to the ground by one of the Kingsguard. Now, in the novel, he dies of his wounds a few days after the trial. In this, he dies during it. So, like, that's hardly a change at all. But yeah, she had on screen there. You can see this is some Kingsguard finishing him off. Probably Wild or Crakehall, because Sir Donald was facing Lionel. But there's no way to tell which one's Wild and which one's Crakehall. Either way, they both killed Harding and Beesbury, respectively, quickly turning it into a 6-on-5, not 7-on-5, because Daron also just kind of flops. So it goes from 7-on-7 to 6-on-5 very quickly. And then it goes very quickly to the flashbacks after Dunk gets lanced brutally and then Morningstar to the face.
Before we move on to that, I want to point out this one moment in shot with Arion here, where he rears up his horse after he comes in and stabs Dunk in the stomach. You know, I just thought that was a really powerful, cool moment. You know,
the way he threw his lance down, yes, it was very sinister and triumphant. It was like, oh man, he should feel triumphant. He just broke his lance off in the guy's side, like he should feel like he's winning. So yeah, let's go like the show does to the flashbacks and then return to the action when it returns to the action. We'll follow along nicely. It's easy with an episode like this that doesn't jump around a whole lot. So I guess, yeah, let's go to, I skipped over something here, but whatever. We'll go right to Flea Bottom here. It doesn't matter. We can move fluidly. So this is a little surprising. We have apparently the Redgrass Field has just happened. That is not the book timeline for this. It's not quite clear to me whether they changed the timeline or just made Dunk older. Hopefully it's just they made Dunk older, because that is the lightest change that's possible from the suggestions I'm making here, is from what I can interpret as the possibilities.
I think that just makes the most sense to me, right? It seems very elegant that Dunk is simply older, and that would place him at around Battle of Redgrass Field if you age him up that much, right?
Yeah, it needs to. We're talking about aging him up, maybe a pretty good amount, like maybe 6 to 7 years. Like Bamber Todd was 14 when that was filmed, and just like Peter Claffey is 30, and he's playing someone much younger. So in that way, it makes sense. You got an older person, playing. Peter Claffey is already older than Dunk should be, so aging Dunk up fits in that sense, and it doesn't really hurt anything to make him a little bit older. And then
I could also read Dunk, like grown Dunk that we're watching, even though the actor might be 30, he could be 26. Like he, it's not like he doesn't look like some grizzled 30-year-old guy. He could be in his mid-20s, which means that the younger Dunk could be 10 or 11. And he might be a little big for that, but Dunk is a little big for his age, and it would help parallel him to Egg, and to Egg being small for his age, and Dunk being big for his age. So,
Agreed.
And then with the simple age up, which doesn't really disrupt too much, it also doesn't require any disruption of the timeline or affect anything that plays out in the future or whatever else. So yeah, I think it's all fine. I
think it's better for Dunk to be older when Arlen adopts him, frankly. I think it's better in that we see it here. Dunk thinks about how Dunk of Flea Bottom was scrappier and is able to do these things. You see a 5 or 6 year old really internalize that deeply? I think it makes way more sense to me for it to be someone who's 10 to 14, which is the range we're guessing. I wouldn't guess he is older than 14. I wouldn't guess he's younger than 10, right? And so I think his trials and tribulations living as like a street rat is more significant to me if he made it all the way to his preteen years than if he was 5 or 6. So I like that they changed this. I also think it makes it so that he's even more reminiscent of Arlen's nephew, Roger of Pennytree. If he's a little bit older, it would make him think of Roger a little bit more, probably. I don't know. I think it makes a lot of sense. In addition to what we talked about last week, which is that it just makes filming easier for them. Yeah, having actual 6 or 7 year old, they wouldn't use a 6 year old, but they would have to use someone like 9 year old, and that's already a huge challenge. And let's be honest, I think maybe there's a case to be made that George made Dunk too young, like you said, not because it's a bad age, but he was running around with a group, like throwing heads into pots, and
So that doesn't sound like sounds like a little older than 6. Yes, he was big for his age, but anyway, we're nitpicking.
George just does this. Like he does this in A Song of Ice and Fire. He regularly makes characters younger than he really needed to.
Yeah. So just to be clear on what these numbers we're talking about is the Blackfire Rebellion is 13 years prior to Ashford Meadow. So if Dunk is about 11 or 12 here, which is my preferred guess, then he's 24 or 25 at Ashford Meadow, which is reasonable. That totally fits. Like he looks that, he could be that. It's fine that he's been a squire to Sir Arlen for that long. Yeah, it all works. And like you all said, we seem to agree that it doesn't seem to have any butterfly effect beyond that. It won't affect any other timelines. So yeah, we have scavenging on the battlefield. That's a pretty clever way to cut it, even though it's jarring maybe, and the pacing I won't argue with anyone who had a problem with the pacing as far as this goes, but I didn't have a big problem with it. I preferred it more the second time. If I was going to complain about the pacing, I'd say it's so intense prior to this moment, and I want to be thinking on a subtle thematic level for scenes like this, and it's so quick that I'm missing things because I'm in the intense mode. But on the other hand, I'm going to watch it multiple times, and a lot of us are going to do that because it's that good. So we're going to catch this stuff eventually. If you don't catch it the first time, who cares? That's maybe a critique for how good it is as a piece of art standing on its own. But as far as fans go, that to me is fine. Anyway,
you could argue a piece of art standing on its own should be looked at multiple times if it's really worthwhile. You know what I mean? Like you can't expect to always get everything immediately upon viewing it. You know,
that's fair.
I found great meaning in Dunk, when he gets knocked out, him flashing back immediately to kind of seeing the horrors of war and fighting, and like his one of his closest experiences was seeing that with killing a man, because they did have part of his killing there, this Hightower man. So I don't know, that's what I took from it, that's the moment that he goes to, and then it follows us through like the other great death that he saw, which is holding Rafe in his arms, and then it parallels at the end him holding Baelor. So I thought it was effective. I get a lot of people were bothered because they felt that him having a connection with Rafe was meant to parallel him saving Tancel. I don't really think so. I kind of think they're unrelated and kind of a happy accident of a parallel. I think there was other things that they wanted to show in terms of Dunk's family that he lost, his yearning for a family. I saw all of that more than I saw him wanting to save Rafe when he saved Tancel, but that's a valid reading of it.
I felt like Rafe wanted to save him more than he wanted to save her.
Yeah, I tend to agree that she was the one pushing for to be saved. On the other hand, he had a cogent argument that he wasn't able to put into words very well, which is that it's not going to be better elsewhere. It's the problem is that we're broke and lowborn, not that it's King's Landing, and that was a good point. Even though he phrased it as he made it about his mother, which was not a good point. She seized on that. It's sad that he's saying that. I'm not ragging him for it, but in terms of best outcomes for him, I kind of understand that.
I also appreciated like when they go back to Flea Bottom, you're still seeing the ravages of war. You're seeing like people cauterizing like legs and stuff. It's pretty rough, and I also like seeing that this is the environment that he was coming of age and growing up in. Mm-hmm.
You said it well with the I'm sorry's there. He said I'm sorry to the Hightower man as he's holding his windpipe blocking his windpipe, taking away his oxygen, and he says I'm sorry to Rafe if she's dying, and I'm sorry to Baelor. In all three cases, it's not his fault, but he's saying he's sorry. That's just the kind of guy he is. I thought Bamber Todd, like you said, Ashea caught Dunk's kindness really well. A recurring theme was Dunk being nice to animals. We saw that here. He's nice to a goat. He's petting a goat, just on the road. He pet the rat when he was in prison, and of course he's very kind to the horses. The whole bit about the Hightower, they have to do a prayer for the Hightower man or he'll go to hell with the rest of us, and he says I don't have any words. Obviously that's a callback to the first scene of the whole show with Sir Arlen and him not knowing the words for Sir Arlen either, and
a callback to him not knowing the words to Knight Raymond.
Right,
he had no words.
He had no words there either, or not all of them anyway. on their way out, returning from their jaunt to do some looting, they see a Stokeworth, not a caravan, it's just a couple of horses, and there's a dead body there. I guess, I don't know if this is like someone collecting a bounty or taking, it doesn't seem to be, it could be a funeral, but I don't know why they'd be taking a body to King's Landing if it was their own family. They'd be going to Stokeworth.
If there was some Stokeworth character that died in the Blackfire Rebellions, that maybe this could be someone we should recognize, some story, maybe something they're setting up. I don't know.
Yeah, the Stokeworth lands are just north of King's Landing too, so he could just be passing this direction. But yeah, I don't recall a particular Stokeworth knight. You know, there were the Lord Stokeworth was involved, but this wouldn't be him.
I'm glad to see this sigil closer. We debated about it for a while before we knew what it was a couple weeks ago. And we can see that the goblet has like gems and stuff on it. I think it's such an interesting decision that they made it, instead of a lamb holding a goblet, they made it a goblet holding a lamb. And I think it's a better image, but I have questions about why they wanted to change it for this era. And
someone just misread it and
Ira Parker,
work and no one called him out.
Said that this was one of his favorite sigils in the series even. So I don't know. I think it's nice. It kind of looks like a bird with its tail from afar, you know? So it's kind of an optical illusion almost.
It is wacky and kind of hard to figure. So yeah, they're trying to buy
Is that a miniature lamb or a huge chalice?
Both. No, it's a huge chalice and a huge lamb. It's gigantic. So trying to buy passage to the free cities, which is always like a kind of a sign that they don't know what they're doing exactly, because like that's 9 different free cities and they're really not close to each other at all. Which one are you going to?
Both in geography or society. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, like you could Bravos. Oh, okay. I would say that's a fine choice, but do not go to one of those cities that they have a lot of slavery, because you'll end up amongst that as one of them. Like, do not go to Volantis. Do not go to Lys. Yeah. So I appreciated some of the small character touches here too, like very much like Dunk. He doesn't react angrily at someone getting mad at him. When Rafe flares up and is like, well, at least you're probably happy that we get to stay here and wait for your dead mother. And he just like he just kind of looks down. He's like, and then she apologizes. He's like, he doesn't even say anything. He's just like, I get it. You're upset. You're lashing out. Like, that's a very mature reaction. But that is Dunk. Like, that is how he is. He doesn't take things personally like that. It's about right and wrong on a different level for him. This is, to them, that's nothing. Those are just some words. Words are wind, right? It's the deeds that matter. And he is more concerned with those things throughout these scenes. When this Alistair character and the other bully whose name isn't given, they're gold cloaks. You can tell the gold cloaks are in a particularly sorry state given how disheveled they are. His gold cloak is messy as heck. The other guy's cloak isn't even gold. He may not even be a gold cloak.
They looked so bad to me that I was doubtful when we first watched it that they were actually gold cloaks in City Watch. I thought like, oh, maybe they killed one and took his clothes and are kind of faking it, but no, he's credited as Alistair City Watch, and the actor referred to him that way as well. So I do think that they really do show the sorry state they're in. Yeah,
a former thief. He pointed out that he lost a hand for thieving, so they hired a former. Yeah, I mean, really, I'm all for rehabilitation, but I think they're making a point here that this is not that, because this guy clearly isn't rehabilitated. It's not a good dude.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of. I think we were supposed to get the idea that, if not the gold cloaks in general aren't the most upstanding or in the best of times, the ones at Flea Bottom. You can imagine they might care a little bit. Sure, whatever. You can go be a gold cloak in Flea Bottom, and he may even have a bad reputation if he goes out of his area. The gold cloaks in other areas might like you shouldn't even be one of us. Get back to your. I can imagine it being a range of quality of character and interactions between different neighborhoods, if you will, in King's Landing. But one way or the other, this guy in this scenario is not good.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. It's very much like a lower scale Aryan. This is like the bully of his youth, where Aryan is like a peak bully, because he's the highest ranking bully you can basically imagine. He and Rafe, those two, were both in the Dune Prophecy show. Alistair and Chloe Leah. He was a Harkonnen, and she was a young Bene Gesserit. So they weren't even on the same timeline. They may not have even met on set. They weren't in the same scenes at all, but still, that's cool. At different points, she refers to Pudding and Ferret, different as using examples as they're discussing things. And those are both characters mentioned from books, Dunk's memories. One of them in particular, a story that she mentions, is how people don't forget. People don't forget how they made you feel. And that's why she says, yeah, this Blackfire Rebellion isn't over. People are still mad at each other over the things that happened during the war, even though the war is over. And she's 100% right. Then she kind of forgets her own lesson when she provokes this guy that she knows she's going to see again. And she just steals from him twice. I guess she obviously didn't think it would go that far.
I mean, she looks so proud of herself.
She did.
She looked so
really
smug, her face there.
And she was so mad that he stole their money. They worked so hard for that money. So like she was kind of desperate. Yeah.
I thought about that quite a bit. How the irony that she's trying to tell Dunk, if you hurt someone, they're going to hurt you back. And then she goes and hurts someone. Although they did hurt her too, and I thought a lot about the idea that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, that that people who think that, because people have this idea, if you get hurt, you hurt someone back. Well, then when they get hurt, they hurt someone back. When that person got hurt, so they hurt someone. It's like they make sure that it stays that way. You know what I mean? And
the cycle, yeah.
If everyone stopped thinking that way, that wouldn't be the way that it is anymore. Now, it's human nature, at least some humans sometimes. So it makes sense, but I don't know. It's sad. It's sad to see and sad to realize how hopeless. She said, Flea Bottom is full of people who have been hurt. It's a tinderbox, all these people have been hurt or waiting to hurt someone back. And sure enough, it happens. And I was even thinking a little bit about the idea of, Dunk being there versus going somewhere else. Maybe everywhere is crapping.
That would be really sad, Sean.
Right, yeah.
I loved that line.
Yeah. It was a good line, yeah. And, in King's Landing, in a way, in maybe big cities, both then and now, maybe, I guess, I don't know, there's more wealth around, so there's more opportunity, especially if you're willing to be a thief. But if they get out into just some farm somewhere, there will be more opportunity for work, I think, right? Like in that city, what can these kids do? They're out scrounging scraps from a battlefield. There's just more people. There's more disparity in wealth, which encourages the thievery and less opportunities for people to work, so there's more need for But if he just went out in the countryside and found a farm, he could just work on a farm and wouldn't feel the wrath of gold cloaks trying to take his stuff, at least not as often, not as likely. And that's kind of what happens, right? When he gets out of King's Landing, he's just wandering around the road. No one's harassing him anymore. You know what I mean? And he finds someone who will have him work, and he does work, and he does well. And I don't know. It's an interesting microcosm, I think, of at least certain elements of the world, both this fantasy world and time and the real world.
I like that line from the guy they were selling scraps to. Well, I'll be plundering that tomb for a dragon's age. It feels like the kind of language that could be in world. Dragons live so long, so it's a good way to express, a long period of time. And it also is a good way to express just how big and bloody the battle was. That implies a lot of people died there. There's a lot of things left behind, a lot of pieces of armor, a lot of horseshoes, a lot of daggers, a lot of random things. This sets up a little bit what happens in the Mystery Knight when the Snail Knight gets mad at his squire for accepting a Daemon Blackfire coin. But he doesn't give the coin back. He's like, I'm going to have to melt this down. You can't melt down leather. So like with metal, there's a way around it. Leather, yeah, you can't do anything with that. So you can understand why it's bad to be caught with that. They might think you're, especially under, the regime that emerges a bit later under Bloodraven and all that. They're pretty strict about Blackfire imagery. They're not allowed to sing Blackfire songs. You're not allowed to, so it becomes a pretty big deal. This guy's a little bit ahead of himself. He kind of knows that's going to go. It's going to go that way. Probably for the same reason Rafe understands it. Like, people are still going to be mad. People are taking this very seriously, and the violence isn't done yet.
You know, another thought I had, by the way, when they go to get fare to, a free city, just kind of generic. And the guy's like, price is double. A lot of people have the same idea. I think what's behind that is that now that the Blackfire Rebellion is over, anyone who was a supporter of the Blackfires in any way, they're in danger and they need to get away. And there will be a number of them, and that would increase the demand for spots on ships, and the price would double and so on. That makes sense, right?
It definitely does make sense, yes. And a lot of those ships would be wary about taking obvious Blackfires on, so they would have to take more money to do it, things like that. Yeah, so you're right. This is a whole domino effect going on here. So getting back to the pivotal moment here, Rafe is killed by Alistair, and Dunk finally has something that makes him lose his temper. It takes a lot, because he's only going to react to more serious things. Words are wind and all that. He wasn't nearly as upset about the fare not being enough, because he's more optimistic. He's like, look, we'll just keep looting the battlefield. We'll get there. Obviously not after this. He's thrown off and speared in the leg, and Sir Arlen drunkenly saves him. So there's some missing context here that you have to think back on. We all know Sir Arlen's a drinker. That's been clear from the beginning. But he's particularly drunk here, and that's almost certainly because he just lost his nephew and squire in that battle. The Redgrass Field, he died in that battle. So this is like a day or two ago. Like, literally that recent. And we know it's that recent because that dude wouldn't have been alive under the horse if this would have been like a week or two ago. That guy would have been dead quite a while. So that's how we know it's very recent. So he's mourning. He's in mourning, and maybe even Dunk looks a little like Roger. I'm going to guess that's at least a 50% chance they run with that as a connecting point. But it's the lesson. It's the opposite of this bully lesson. He saw a kid being picked on, doesn't know the kid, doesn't even talk to the kid afterwards, just steps in and saves him and then moves on. Like, that's what a true knight does, kind of when they're drunk anyway. And moving on's wise too, because he just killed 2 gold cloaks, which that might be a problem for you a little later there if anyone points it out. But he's defending the weak. Even when it's an authority figure, like Dunk going after Aryan. Oh, sorry, I took your line. Yeah. But anyway, that's what I have to say about that moment. I'll go ahead, and Sean, we'll transition to you for this scene. I
just wanted to point out that the fact that it was, an official of some sort, someone of authority or whatever, he didn't hesitate. He had no factor in the decision that he made, the action that he took. It didn't matter.
That really struck Dunk too.
Maybe even mattered extra. Maybe even made him more motivated.
So he's still thinking about, and we had these lines a little before, having a family. Rafe said, no, you can't wait for your family. You got to go make one. And that's hard to disagree with that when they're in the state they're in. Orphans living in this is a sewer we're seeing. The grade 2 is sewer, like actually about as bad as it gets. So I was going to say, sir, he sees Sir Arlen, but actually hears Sir Arlen first and then sees him, and he knocks over some apples. He's still drunk. So again, on a grief bender, a guy who already drinks a lot, going on a bender is really quite a lot of drinking. And this brings us to what we were waiting for. Now, Shea mentioned it earlier. We weren't sure how they would splice in these shots into the trial. We thought it might be some back and forth we did not guess, at least I didn't guess, I don't remember us guessing, all in one. That was not really on my radar as a possibility.
There was one brief other shot of art when he goes, get up.
Oh, get up, you're right.
Technically, it's just a repeat. I just wanted just semantically, technically.
Totally right.
Technically.
The best kind of correct. Technically correct. So that brings us to a lot of the missing trailer shots. Ones we've been waiting for all season. Is like, when is Sir Arlen? When are we going to see this one? And they're all of them were here. I don't think there's any missing Sir Arlen trailer shots left. And I don't know that we'll see Sir Arlen again this season. Well, and maybe not ever again. I kind of think we will, but
I'm rooting for some flashback, and maybe not of Sir Arlen, but I still want them to keep up a flashback in every episode, and I would like to see one in episode 6. But you're right that we will absolutely see more of Arlen in future seasons.
I kind of think and hope and expect that we will, because Dunk keeps thinking about him in the future books. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Being an influence on him, he has more memories with him and so on.
Well, I think it's part of how the show frames things. Like, I think it's part of the foundational DNA of the show to use flashbacks.
He's the ancestor of House Dunk.
Yeah, not just far gone flashbacks, but recent flashbacks. I think that's a thing that they will continue always using.
You're right. They established that it's the thing they're going to do. Yeah, and they cast a pretty solid actor for this role too, Danny Webb. He's a dude. So Arlen leaves. As I said, that's maybe partly related to the fact that he's killed some gold cloaks, but also related to the fact that he's a hedge knight. He lives on the road. He also wants to go back to the grave where Roger is buried. And that's his nephew and squire, again, to repeat, that's whose helm was sitting on the grave. And we were all pretty confused about what this song was. It's a Dothraki song, per David J. Peterson. He's the Dothraki guy. And we have the translated lyrics. He's the Dothraki guy. He invented Dothraki.
I know. It's just a funny way to put it. But we got the lyrics. Yeah, he has an AO3, that's Archive of Our Own, the fan fiction site. He uses that under Dead Elves, DEDALVS, and I'm putting the link in the chat again for y'all, but Aziz is going to read it, right?
The ropes of death enwrapped me. Ungodly men have made me afraid. The ropes of hell abound me. The sorrows of death prevented me. In my distress, I called upon you, the great stallion, who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be saved from my strong enemy. Beat them small as the dust before the wind. I will cast the evil out as the dirt in the streets. Courage is my salvation. Mercy is my light. Make my feet like hinds' feet, that my step would not blunder. Gird me with might, that I destroy them that hate me. I will cast the evil out as the dirt in the streets. Courage is my salvation. Mercy is my light. That's pretty good. Now, I'm definitely confused as to why Sir Arlen knows the Dothraki song, but there could be some clever explanation. It's too obscure for me to guess at, but I'm sure there's a way to come up with a reason for it.
Well, I imagine fighting in war, there's very good likelihood that they hired sellswords, right?
Yeah,
and that Arlen fought alongside some Dothraki. And that's my personal explanation, is that it happened during the war and not earlier, because that's the most likely time that I think he would have interfaced with Dothraki, and that they would have mourned people. They would have lost people in a previous fight, and that Dothraki might have taught it to him and other people then, right?
I could see it. Yeah, I could see it. So
it's interesting, by the way, not just that he knows this Dothraki song, but he knows it in Dothraki seemingly pretty well. Like, he's got it like memorized and he's singing it.
You're not a native Dothraki speaker, Sean. For all you know, he's mangling every single word. We don't know. He's speaking it with a common accent. He's pronouncing everything wrong. I would like to know, actually, if I asked David J. Peterson if he had good delivery or if he was on purpose, like slurring and messing words up, right? Because he's drunk, so you would expect that it's not spot on.
So it gets lost in the shuffle because there was so much amazing action in this episode, but that drunken flop he did when he fell on his back, that was really good. That was a really A+ drunken flop there, Sir Arlen. So when Dunk sneaks up on the passed out Sir Arlen, we get that scene that we talked about a little earlier when he talks to Sweetfoot, which is a callback to Egg talking to Thunder and meeting Sweetfoot, and then Dunk having to sell Sweetfoot later. Dunk is about to put the helm on. They played with this in the trailer. They showed it as if he was putting it on, and then Dunk's putting his helm on during the trial. We guessed that might be back-to-back, but we also suggested it might be a trailer edit. It was a trailer edit. In fact, he doesn't put the helm on. He plays with the sword, he talks to the horse, but he doesn't put the helm on because, once again, Dunk has this innate goodness, and it's wrong to put on a dead person's helm.
Yeah, he can tell it's a grave. It's very obvious, obviously, that it's a grave.
He's a child, so he doesn't first realize that. He wouldn't realize it immediately, but as a child, he's just got to go through that process of thinking that through.
I thought there were two shots that I loved the way they paralleled, and they're going to be in a million fan edits on TikTok and the YouTube and the like. And one is this one of him holding the helm and almost putting it on. The other is when he's curled up on the ground, you know, close to near death, right? And that's obviously the exact same pose that he's in, where the shot that kind of is dolly out and zooms in on him at the very end that I'll show in a minute. Yeah, those were like exactly the same.
I think it's also an interesting parallel to Egg, where Dunk kind of holds back and he starts to pick up the helmet, but Egg just puts on Dunk's armor, jumps on the horse. Like Egg, I don't know if he's more brash or has faced less consequences or has a different moral system, or maybe that's why Dunk is more upset with Egg. He's like, who do you think Doug had more, for whatever reasons, reservation about getting into Arlen's mix, where Egg just takes his stuff and gets on his horse, you know, like it's a contrast.
Well, there's a noble for you. There's a prince for you, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. They both have the same quality, that they grew up around awful influences and bad circumstance. Well, Eggs weren't just bad circumstances so much as just a really bad family, whereas Dunk had no family and really bad circumstances. In either case, they came out as good people anyway. But they also see have a grass is greener kind of thing going on, where for Dunk, it's more obvious, like he's broke and familyless. Of course the grass is greener, but for Egg, it's more like the grass is greener because his family sucks. Like if his family didn't stink, he might appreciate his privilege and make use of it a lot more instead of trying to get away from it because it's associated with horrible people. But yeah, this is there's a little bit of like a drunken master kind of vibe here, where the student has to follow and suffer and prove their dedication, but it's not quite like that also, because Sir Arlen is mourning and probably isn't ready to have another squire. Like literally, as we said, that his squire died like a few days before, if not like no more than a few days. So it really seems to me like Arlen's aware of Dunk following him. Dunk isn't trying to hide. At one point he's just sitting there whittling and looking at him doing swords. Yeah, they both know aware of the other, like very clearly. And Dunk, I think Dunk knows Sir Arlen knows he's there.
I don't agree, actually. I don't think that I think it speaks to how checked out Arlen is, and how like he's numbing himself, that I thought that Dunk was observing him. He was whittling, which mirrored Egg, and Arlen still did not see him, even though like we see it from our perspective, you can see it, but Arlen never turns his head to him. He never looks at him until that scene where he sees him collapse following him. And so I don't think
Okay, well, let's see. Well, y'all weigh in. What do you think, whether he noticed him or not? Certainly, I would like to add one other point, that I think that, point, you'll see, that's a pun. I think Arlen kind of realizes he's hit rock bottom when he sleeps on his own knife. And it's, to me, that fits with what I'm saying, that that's when he's like, all right, I guess I can't do this alone. I should softens him up a little bit because he realizes he's just is so deep in this. What do you think, Sean?
I'm really back and forth on it. I think it could go either way, because I thought the same thing with a knife. Well, I think in the end, I think that I agree with you. But for example, with a knife, I think that could go to Shay's argument. He's so out of it, he stabbed himself in his sleep. And maybe he's so out of it, he doesn't notice the boy. But also there was a moment when Dunk was puking, like he drank the muddy water and puked. And it's hard to imagine Arlen didn't hear that. But they also show Arlen in that moment by the crackling fire whittling, and maybe it did drown it out. And when you are super drunk, it's kind of disassociative. You kind of become less aware, even things that maybe you're kind of subconsciously aware of, you don't care about, you kind of block it out or forget about it. Being blackout drunk, literally you forget things that happened. Did you notice them when they did happen?
It's a several day long bender. Yeah, you could. Yeah. I can see it. Yeah.
There were several moments where I felt like Dunk was too close. There's one moment they were kind of going up a little hill, and Dunk was maybe 2 horse lengths behind him. But if Arlen's slumped over half drunk looking forward, he still might not know. I'm really back and forth. I could not decide. I think in the end I decided it was too obvious, and that Arlen was quasi-aware, but just didn't care. He's too drunk to care about anything, even his own well-being, and finally was forced to acknowledge this kid following him. But I can see it either way.
I think there were multiple times where Arlen would have acknowledged him if he noticed. One, and this is after the whittling, it's when Dunk is really cold. It's so freezing and he's shivering like he could die from it. And then he's puking. And I think Arlen would have said something if he had actually noticed him puking. Two, the scene here that I'm now on when Dunk is curled up because he's been so cold there and it hasn't even gotten up when Arlen has gotten up, you know? And Arlen, Arlen never turns his head to look at him once as he goes past him. I think he did not see a little boy curled up there. And I think it's not until, because the next sequence is he's so drunk that he stabbed himself, right? That's the next shot. And then the next scene is finally he sees this boy following him and collapses, and he goes right to him as soon as he actually sees him and he sees him collapse. So that's why I don't think he did, because I think there were two moments where Dunk needed his help and he didn't help.
All right. Maybe there'll be some commentary from the showrunner on that or one way or another to clarify it.
One counterpoint to Ashea is that they seem to be kind of walking a line between whether or not Arlen was a really good person or not. And it might be that Arlen, even if he is a good person and could help Dunk, might have been so drunken out of it that he barely acknowledged or remembered that he was there. And maybe that makes him a bad person, that you could get yourself so drunk that you're not doing the right thing, you know?
Well, anyway, let's move on from that topic, y'all. So certainly there's no disagreement on how it ends. He sees him there and he decides whether he's been noticed him there all along or not. He definitely decides to help at that moment. And it's helping the weak one way or the other, whether he should have done it sooner or not. He definitely does it here. And it's the exact moment where it goes back to the action. And it's pretty cool because on one sense, I could see the earlier argument at the pacing. On another sense, this lasts so long that you almost kind of forget. You've been sucked into this so long that it is kind of like, oh, back to the action. Wow, that was pretty smooth. Because the first few minutes, you're like, when is it going to transition back? But then it's been several minutes and you kind of stop thinking about that.
Yeah, it lulls you into kind of a sense of security, or you forget completely. At least I did as well.
Yeah, for me, absolutely.
I actually specifically like the pacing. I remember one time, I mean, this has been like 20 years, I read an analysis of like screenplay writing and pacing and whatever, and it was based off a script that Tim Burton had written for Superman that ended up not getting made. But he started it off with this action sequence. He started off with this fight between General Zod and Superman. And then you get from this thick of action, cut back to whatever, Superman's on a farm, more dramatic, slow-paced kind of stuff. And then eventually it builds back up to action again. And I think that is a method modern filmmakers have taken on pretty well. Start off getting people's attention, and action does that pretty well. And then smooth it out, get to a lull, flashback to what got you to the point of action or whatever. I think that it is a common and effective pacing, if you will, for screenwriting.
You might be wondering how I got here.
I don't
kind of beat.
I don't think it's a screenwriting thing. I just think it's a storytelling thing quite often. Like, I think you very often start off with something. It's not going to be like visceral start, but it is, you often have action or something intense, then you kind of dial it back.
Has been doing that since long before film was a medium.
Yeah, certainly. So, but it is different in that sense, but it's a similar device, yeah. All right, so Karina Strick sends a super chat, and we appreciate that, all y'all's support. Let's take a second and then get back to the action, literally the action. But first, let us discuss something that we've been bringing up every so often to you all. It's time for some action. For those of you who join the World Science Fiction Society upon our call to action or on your own, you are now able to nominate. You should have an email with your ballot information. You should nominate all the works you enjoyed. Sure, you read and watched quite a few of them. Hopefully you did. If not, get on that. It's good stuff.
Things eligible are things that came out in 2025. So A Night of the Seven Kingdoms would not be eligible, just to be clear for y'all, right? But plenty of things came out last year that I'm sure you enjoyed. That's books, TV, movies, comics, video games. There's a lot of great categories in the Hugo Awards. We personally are not eligible in Best Fan Cast. Don't nominate us there. We are eligible in the category Best Related Work. We are suggesting our episode Ragnarok versus the Long Night by History of Westeros to make it easier for y'all. If you disagree and you just have an episode you'd rather nominate, please, by all means, do. We will have the best shot if we all choose one episode because we have so many episodes. But, nominate other best related works you like. Nominate, anything you like that's relevant. Check the eligibility rules if you're in doubt. Email us if you're in doubt and want to know more about it. I like talking about the Hugo Awards. I think it's a really awesome award show. I like that they give you the nominating, all the nominations in a packet. I think that's really cool. So you're going to get some awesome stuff from it.
Can I ask real quick, Aziz? I guess I in my mind, Hugo Awards was for literature, it was for written works. But you said TV shows also?
TV shows, movies, video games, comics, podcasts. The year that we went in Ireland, Archive of Our Own, speaking of it, as we talked about it earlier, that's what won in Best Related Work. That's a website. That's a fan fiction website. In 2018, that was 2019. No, in 2019, that's what won the Best Related Work was a fan fiction website. So no, it's quite varied actually.
And they gave a couple episodes of The Good Place won awards there. So just to give you an idea of the scope goes from well-known things to independent stuff. Yeah.
Can I mention a couple quick things? I'm wearing a Pluribus shirt right now. Would that be eligible for a Hugo Award? I hope so.
I believe so.
That aired in 2025,
it aired in 2025, right? Yeah. I bet it's going to be nominated.
Yeah, it would be nominated, and you can nominate the whole. I think you can nominate something in long form as like the whole season, or short form as a single episode. They have a little bit of flexibility, so there could be a TV series that's nominated along with a movie, actually, I believe. But you'd have to dig more into the rules to see what you can nominate. But that is often the case, is that sometimes, of course, people split the vote. They don't know what episode to vote for of Pluribus, so people vote for 3 different episodes and none of them get nominated. Yeah. But, maybe there's an obvious one. But yeah, you nominate it.
Can I, another minor thing, if I can throw this out, just a personal thing. I've been working on a script for a couple years for a TV show, and pilot is a entry for the Atlanta Film Festival that we submitted to. Me and a couple of my friends are working on this together. And they told us that they've narrowed it down from 600 some applicants to 32. I think they're going to pick 5 to be actually nominated.
Yeah.
But
congrats.
That we got put in the
very good.
And you'll find out pretty soon, right?
Yeah, imminently, I think.
Amazing. Hopefully next week we have great news for you all.
I like how while we've been discussing this great opportunity for Sean, we've just had Dunk lying there in the mud.
This is one of my favorite shots in the whole show, is why it's there. I think it's just like this striking shot
from the graphic novel too, right?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Also like
it is ripped straight from the graphic novels, truly.
It's really
but
great.
The way he's kind of crumpled, but he still looks so big and so small at the same time. You know what I mean?
Because his legs are all folded, but his chest is spread.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, I do think I left it on the shot for a reason, because I like it so much.
Also, don't forget to pick up one of Ashea's tour shirts for Dunk and Egg, the Thick as a Castle Wall tour. It's got every destination that we know of for Dunk and Egg listed as tour dates. You can get it front and back, or just front, and it looks awesome. You've seen me wearing it in past streams. The link is in the description. Now let's move on. We've got a question from John Colorado. It says, given that the Dunk of the novellas is consistently treated by others, including Egg, as a fully grown, physically imposing man rather than a boy, and that Dunk himself views Egg with a mixture of adult responsibility, protectiveness, and occasional exasperation, isn't the HBO casting actually more faithful to how their dynamic is written rather than the fan expectation that Dunk should look like a teenager? Yeah, that's a great point. Like, Dunk is written as if he's older than it's kind of like, actually, he's about 17. People are like, oh, wow, that's a good, you're right. He is but he doesn't act that way, partly because he's an orphan. He had to grow up quicker, which is a well-established thing, not only in the real world, but George makes a point of that, to point that out in many places that people in his situation would have to grow up quicker. So yeah, that's a very good point. This is basically the same character, even though the age has changed. let's talk about the trial, the actual combat. As Sir Arlen says, get up. He gets up. We're back inside Dunk's helm. I appreciate what y'all were saying before about how much that was a part of the intense experience being in Dunk's helmet. Y'all talked about the visuals there a bit, the sound of his breathing, the muffled breathing. I thought that had a real effect on me just because he's the desperation, the shortness of his breath. And just the claustrophobia of it all, how hard it is to see what's going on. And knowing that he has no experience with this. He's only ever trained this. He's never had a real fight in knightly combat with a great helm on. This is the first time he's worn this helm that he just bought. So a repeating thing they show that I thought was very effective was the scared Dunk eyes, where you just see his eyes and they're big and scared and he doesn't know what to do. You see that several times. Eventually it becomes just Dunk eye because one of them is swollen shut, but it still works. There, like right this one she has on screen right now. Like he looks terrified. And he should. It's scary. Once again, we have a book to screen transition that's so precise and nearly identical that we can just read the novel scene to describe what happens in the show. Here it is. Quote.
The spiked ball whirled round and round the sky and fell toward his head as fast as a shooting star. Dunk rolled. Where he found the strength, he did not know, but he found it. He rolled into Arian's legs, threw a steel-clad arm around his thigh, dragged him cursing into the mud, and rolled on top of him. Let him swing his bloody morning star now.
Yeah, Dunk gets some confidence there in that moment in his mind. And in the show, it's unclear in the book whether he completely dodges or takes a glancing blow. He definitely takes a glancing blow here, but it's not enough to slow him down. He's able to get close to Arian and tackle him. Arian even gets in a few more, like one or two more shots with the Morningstar before Dunk can tackle him, like hits him in like the arm.
And Maekar tries to get involved, and Baelor comes out. I said Valhar, he's in his armor. It's funny.
Maekar knocks him down once with his mace. You're right. Takes him out, like flat in the face, and then Baelor takes Maekar off his horse. Yeah, that was really exciting.
I think there were a couple moments in there where Dunk and Arian took hits from some other passerby.
Oh yes, I have a list of that in a second. Let's hold that off just for a second. So a significant difference overall is there is more combat in the book. Once Dunk gets the upper hand, he doesn't lose it. He gets it, and it ends shortly afterwards. Here, Arian's able to regain some parity, and it becomes a close fight again for a little while until Dunk does eventually get the upper hand. But that's after he, looks like he's done and gets back up.
I think that's my one complaint, is that I feel like Dunk took too many blows, had too many injuries in this version, that it was hard for me to suspend my disbelief a little bit. It felt too much like plot armor, and I didn't feel like that in the book version as much. I don't think he quite had so many.
I can sort of see where you're coming from. I've just read too many real world stories of people being shot like 12 times in war and surviving, and people can survive surprisingly often of these things. And now a lot of people would die from their wounds after this, so there is that. But obviously he doesn't. But I'm not arguing with you, but I don't have a problem with it. But I see what you're saying.
I'm a little on Ashaya's side here, that I feel like probably what put it over the top for me was when he threw the sword and it jammed into his thigh. It's hard for me to believe that would happen. And
that's the least believable part, I think, too. Yeah.
The other one that bothered me was, and you named it as your most cringy wound, and for the poll's sake, was when he got stabbed through the hand, because that's something that, like, the thing is that, I don't know, it's just the nature of these action scenes, is that it hurts. Like, we want to see, I don't know if want's the right word, but the presenters of the action want us to see that the hero is hurt, and we cringe with them, and we're scared for them, and it makes them seem extra brave and tough to overcome it all. But it's not just that it hurts, it's that it injures you in the long term. Like that knife through the hand, there's a strong chance that it cut the tendons to his fingers, and he can never use that hand again. He can't bend his fingers in and grip.
But we don't have to assume that it does.
Yeah, we don't have
like,
to
you know what I mean?
assume
But there's an obvious chance that it doesn't.
That's
so
why
like
it bothers
this is
us,
kind of
disease, is that like you have to suspend your disbelief.
No, you don't,
that
because
so
there's a good
likely.
chance it doesn't happen. That's not like it's not an automatic.
Listen,
is what we're saying.
Like what we're saying is that when that happens 10 times, you have to do that and say, okay, 0 times did it permanently cripple him, right?
Right, maybe the knife to his hand doesn't
agree.
cut the tendons, and maybe the lance in his side doesn't puncture his lung, and maybe the cut that Dunk gets on Aerian's inner thigh doesn't cut an artery. But like one after another, none of these things have to cause a permanent, serious wound that cripples him for life.
Okay, well, we've kind of moved the goalpost here. We're talking about whether it would kill him or not. Like whether he has permanent crippling injuries is different, and I can kind of see that maybe he would, but that doesn't mean he can't function or go throughout his life.
Well, I'm talking about not about that it would kill him, that it's that I have to suspend my disbelief about how he functions, and not only just that it doesn't kill him, but that he is able to pull himself together and continue moving and fighting and all of those things.
Well, this is where I go back to the argument about adrenaline. Like mothers who are no upper body strength at all can lift a car off their child in a moment of extreme adrenaline. So I think people are really capable of what they're much more beyond what they're normally capable of when life and death is at stake. Especially when there's more than life and death at stake in terms of Dunk's position here.
I think my only point is that I would be just as on the edge of my seat and stomach in my throat if it had been half the number of times. I would have found it to be just as exciting.
Sure.
That's it.
That's fine.
Not like
I don't argue with that.
Right?
But I don't. Yeah, I'm just quibbling with the idea that you have to suspend disbelief. Not that it's your choice to do that. I feel like this is all within the realm of someone could survive and not have permanent injuries that are crippling. Maybe permanent injuries, but not crippling injuries. Anyway, let's move on from that. There's this interesting yield edit when Dunk is losing consciousness. I thought one thing they did really well was show that he's quite clearly taken a concussion. Like his head is this ringing. He's wobbly and doesn't know where things are. He's confused. That's signs of a concussion. Now, in the novel, there's in the novel there's signs of a concussion too, but no one knows that word. He's just like confused. He can't remember everything. He has to have some things explained to him. Some of it gets skipped over because it's his internal monologue. Anyway, yeah, I think that's pretty clear that he has his head's not quite right there anymore.
Yeah, I thought it was very well acted. That's really what put me over the edge with is just like the body language and the way he was like he said, he felt like he was dying or drunk, and he was like moving as if he was drunk, and I thought that was well done.
Yeah, I want to give credit to not just the acting, but the music and the editing and everything. It kind of the sound effects, where things are sort of muffled and ringing, and did a really good job of showing he's like barely conscious, barely standing, but still has this focus. This, the fight, if the fight or flight is still keeping him focused on not dying, because that is the thing, is that his life is on the line. Aerian is no joke. We've talked in the past about what his competence level for courage might have been, but he is a formidable, well-trained, aggressive, quick, tough opponent. And Dunk is lucky to be in this at all.
Look at how he looks in this shot from Dunk's visor, how like scary and demonic and like intense. Like you just see like his eyes, and this is when he's trying to gouge out one of Dunk's eyes, and he doesn't quite, he just kind of hits him a little bit, but he doesn't really get him. But it was terrifying.
This was like a reversal of the book, because in the book Dunk thinks about how the visor is the weak point, and he's going to try to aim for that. But Aerian in here is the one that gets to the visor twice. It
almost possibly would have been better off if he could have punctured, because Dunk had so much swelling in his eye. Like, this whole thing reminded me a lot of Rocky. They're just like wailing on each other to exhaustion. And it starts off Apollo Creed is the more skilled, but Rocky's more tough. And it just won't stop, and neither can believe the other's still going. And but in a boxing match, when their eyes swell like that, they have trainers, modern medicine, even for 1975 compared to this time period, they know to cut that open, to relieve the blood and the swelling and to patch it back up. but Dunk's eye was just swollen shut. And if Arion had been able to puncture his eyelid, it might have been a relief to Dunk, honestly.
Little punctures.
Yeah, I was thinking
Puncture
that
slightly,
too,
please.
actually.
And then he takes his helmet off, and I think is part of what you're part of because of that swelling, perhaps, and maybe some other swelling because he'd taken several blows to the head at that point.
I like that he goes.
Because remember with the visor, it's hard to see already. And now with his eyes swollen shut, he can't keep fighting. He's effectively blind. And in a book, if I remember, there was mud in his eye too. He had to take it off to clear the mud out of his eyes.
I liked Dunk going for Arion's crotch because it made me think of Arion just talking to Egg, going to make a sister out of him. That Dunk was going to make a sister
I didn't think
for
of that.
Egg
That's
here.
hilarious.
I was really like, oh, I wish that he could just, castrate him right there, and Arion would never have kids. We know it obviously doesn't really do that, but I was rooting for it.
So, yeah, you can imagine that Arion is like bleeding inside his armor there, just like Dunk even more clearly is. We have scattered shots here and there. There's not much else you can see that's going on. Every once in a while you can see a few things, but just like the novel, Dunk can't see much of what else is going on because the helmet, the fog, the fact that he's focused on Arion, and the fact that the story is mostly through his point of view.
We see that great moment that you brought up, Aziz, with Maekar. I have it on screen right now, where he tries to run and save Arion, my boy, and Baelor and Lionel. You can see his broken antler helm up there, and
it's really broken.
Clothing. And he's got yellow clothing. And if you see the immediate shots beforehand, you see him rear up because he's part of that. He tries to stop him.
Maekar stabs his horse, and he falls over, and his helm breaks. Yeah.
I even trying to figure it out. I was like, well, I know that's not Lionel because he doesn't have the antlers, but and I thought that little kind of cross hook thing, which is clearly now I see the remnants of the broken off antler. I thought that was just some debris or something in the background or something, but yeah, I see.
Yeah, like a horseshoe flying by. Yeah, I thought that was really well done in part two because it's a reminder, as what I said earlier, that I wanted to speak to more now. They're not trying to kill each other, most of them. Baelor and Maekar are not trying to kill each other. The Kingsguard are maybe trying to kill the people that come at them in the joust, because otherwise they will get killed. But other than that, their role is different. Baelor points out that, hey, my brother screwed up by adding the Kingsguard because they'll have to fight me and they can't fight me. That's not the best explanation. It's partly true. But the thing that Baelor doesn't explain there is that the Kingsguard's role there is not to win the trial. Their goal is not to win the trial. They'd like that, but their primary goal is to protect the Targaryens. And there's 4 Targaryens on the field, one of whom's on the other side, and there's only 3 of them. It's a really hard task they have. So, it's hard for them to care about Arion because even though he's the trial, he's the 4th most important of those Targaryens. He's the 4th in the line of succession. So there's only 3 of them, and there's 4 Targaryens, and Arion's the least important. So if you were wondering why the Kingsguard don't ever get involved with Dunk and Arion, that's why. They also probably think he's the most safe. They're like, oh, he's fighting a hedge knight. He's probably fine.
Right. He's facing the least renowned opponent, right?
Yeah.
I like to think the Kingsguard also low-key hate Arion, and
Sure.
so they're like, it works out. It does make sense. They have the excuse, but they probably aren't too bothered.
You can imagine that when Maekar's the one who ordered them to fight, he's probably like, my stupid-ass son brought us into this. He already called him an idiot in front of, the Kingsguard probably aren't ignorant of that. They probably are like, okay, yeah, we're nothing out of the ordinary here. We're fighting in a trial by 7. That's never happened since 150 years ago, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Can I say this is one of my favorite shots and sounds in the episode moments is Arion here when the kind of dreamy haziness of when Arion yells yield, and he roars it. He sounds like a dragon's roar is like mixed in with his voice, like the element it has to it. It also reminds me, speaking of Dune, of the voice in Dune. It sounds a lot like it to me that he's trying to do that.
Wow, if he had voice, Dunk would have yielded. Yeah.
It didn't occur to me, by the way, that probably Maekar and Baelor gave the Kingsguard some sort of instructions about this, right? And
maybe, although they wouldn't have needed much instructions anyway. But yeah, you're probably right.
But as far as who to guard or what this is really about, or you don't need to kill anyone, or I can imagine him giving some And I can also even imagine Maekar having told the Kingsguard, let Aerion fight his own fight. Don't let, he started this. He needs to be his own man. He's trying to get out of having to face Dunk on his own. And then maybe and Maekar probably also is assuming Aerion will win. Like, why would you be a coward? You can beat this nameless guy.
Yeah, he was expecting a one-on-one. Yeah,
when is struggling. Maker's like, crap, my son, no.
Yeah. So, I agree with you about Maekar instructing the Kingsguard. I'm not sure about Baelor though, because Baelor shows up, joins the trial, and then it starts. There's no moment for him to go talk to them.
Well, he might have done it like the night before or something. I'm not confident about this, but I can imagine it.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but you're right. It's not impossible, but I'm guessing. I would guess no on that. But either way,
they might have even come to him saying, "Are we really doing this? How should we handle it?"
Yeah, like while Raymond's painting his shield or something. Sure, there's some moments we don't see. It's definitely possible. Yeah. Overall, I just appreciate how desperate and exhaustive and ungraceful. And this whole thing was, we're so used to graceful combat, flowing, athletic, acrobatic maneuvers, a lot more things like that thrown sword moment. That was where it kind of maybe jumped the shark slightly. But other than that, it was just very gritty and like, that's not even a complaint. It was so good. The only kind of TV fight I can think of that's similar is season 3 of Deadwood has a street fight that's really similarly brutal and just two people going at it, and it's just, they're not trying to be glamorous at all. It's really nasty, and that's what happens. Season 3, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I also we talked about at the beginning. Sean did a bit talking about Dexter Saw Ancella's egg. But he did a great job here. His reactions all throughout it that we see, where he, his upset face, his large projecting voice. He'll be good on a battlefield.
You're right. You're right.
Like he was very good at that, and I thought Dexter nailed it. And also shout out to Rowan Robinson as Red, who's up there. And I'll note that she's in the same side of the stands as Egg because she's there as Manfred Dondarrion's guest, and that's the extended family of the Targaryens. You could tell because Manfred's related to them, Egg's related to them too. Anyways, so it's kind of adjacent to royalty, but she's up there and she goes, "Come on!" And that was one of my favorite moments.
That's going to be memed also, I think. The one person standing up, like me at whatever people are going to say, use that as like me as the one person at the convention or whatever. I don't know.
Can I say another thing? I kept waiting for Egg to say, "Get him! He's right there."
Get him. We didn't get that. It's too bad.
But that wasn't actually. What's that?
Yeah, that was disappointing, Sean. I wanted to get that exact line, but the soul of that was there.
He didn't say it there, though. I checked. I went back. He said it when Aerion was in the joust against Humphrey Harding.
Well, that's when he says kill him. And in the show, he says kill him.
Right. In the book, he said get him, but he just said get him. He didn't say he's right there. In the show, he said kill him. And in this battle at the end, he never said that. He says it in future books, and he said the get him part in the beginning. But at first, I was upset that they didn't include that, but I went back and checked, and they didn't miss it. He didn't actually say it there.
So it's mostly season 2 and 3 then?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I misremember that too. Cool. All right. Well, that's good then. Yeah. The bar is really low for realistic combat, so I just really appreciate the effort to make it more that type, even though we don't know. Literally nobody knows what medieval or pseudo-medieval combat really looks like. Let's always remember that. Nobody has ever seen it. Only reenactments, movies, and the best we can do. And a lot of times it's not the best we can do. But yeah, so I want to say something about Aerion that I thought was really well done. He thinks it's over. He yells, it's over. He's dead. Okay, so what happens to you in that moment? If you're Aerion in that moment, you think you've won. Your adrenaline fades. It's over. As he's yelling, it's over, and then Dunk gets back up. Like, your body physically is like, I have to. So his exhaustion really showed. He really would be that exhausted and that just, I can't even barely pick my sword up off the ground. I was just like, I'm done. It's over. I won. And then this guy gets back up, and he can't, like, how do you get your adrenaline going again? You know?
Yeah, I thought they really showed that on his face right here and his body language and the way that they kind of limped and kind of lumbered over to each other. And yeah, you could see it in both of them, but Aerion really was like,
he looked very human, not like a villain for a split second, you know?
Yeah. he struggled to even just like bend back down and pick his sword up. I think he literally even stumbled and fell to his knee and had to push himself back up. And remember, he's also lost blood. He, probably the whatever adrenaline is still going, and probably still adrenaline is going in him, but it's probably just keeping him breathing and standing.
Yeah.
And remember that the armor itself they're wearing, just putting that on and walking around, it's probably near their own body weight, right? It's probably 100 pounds of metal. Like modern times in this TV show, it would be plastic and fiberglass and, perfectly formed and fit. And, maybe, the royals can get it, blacksmiths and whatever, to fit them just right. But they can't make it out of plastic and fiberglass. It's still going to weigh 100 pounds.
I think 60 is more accurate, Sean. Like 100's whatever. Yeah. We're just estimating. But 60, I think, is the actual close, like a full suit of plate mail. I know that's still a ton. It's still huge. Also, the people back then were a little small. This is not back then. I hate when people say that and apply it to Game of Thrones. It's not back then, but in the equivalent of back then, yes, people were smaller too. So,
and there's not like nutritionists and workout guys,
especially not for
to go to,
especially not for hedge knights. So I really thought so. Hats off to Finn Bennett here for his role here. Also, like in the final moment, you can see, like you said, he was exhausted. He has to pick his sword up, and he's like, "You come at me. I'm not going to come at you. Come at me." And you can see what he's doing. He's got a strategy. He's waiting for Dunk to miss so he can strike him on the head because he doesn't have his helmet anymore. And Dunk leans into that and turns his head to catch his strike on the gorget right here, which is a great spot to catch it because it's just pure thick steel. And then he's able to wrestle him again, and that's it. Then it gets back to the book scene where he's smashing his helm and finishes very similarly from there.
That's Dunk's strategy too. He doesn't want to spar swords. He wants to wrestle. He wants him to get in close and take him down to the ground.
Yeah. So earlier,
when in this shot I have here, when he's beating Arion with the shield, also really good acting by Finn Bennett because there's like this moment where he looks away, like he looks to the side, like out to like everyone who's watching him, where he like I think he really thinks like, do I humiliate myself here by yielding, or do I let him kill me? Like I think you can see that he is wrestling with that shame that he's about to face, and he ultimately is a coward who wants to live.
I agree.
Also,
good take.
I want to point out two things that I think are very interesting here from both the writing and acting perspective. He says he doesn't say I yield. He can't bring himself to yield. He says, I withdraw my accusation. It's like, I guess maybe he didn't do what I said. But I don't yield. He's not better than me. Well, I'm just going to withdraw my accusation.
I thought that was more powerful to me. Like, he says I yield to Dunk privately, but then publicly, not just I yield, I withdraw my accusation, which has so much more meaning and so much more, like, effect about like, no, I was a liar. I was wrong, right? Like that's what that implies.
Yeah. But I, in a way, I agree. But I still think it's more embarrassing for him to admit that guy's a better knight. That guy's a better fighter. I lost to him in combat. I think he's trying to avoid that admission by saying, "All right, I withdraw my accusation."
Well, there's an element of that. I think, it's. I think so. I can see some of that.
The other thing I want to add is that he just got smashed in the face over and over again. He says it. It's like he's working around swollen lips. He says, "Oh, withdraw my accusation." You know what I mean? Like, I think he doesn't quite speak clearly because his mouth is smashed up. And I thought that was a really good touch, too.
So earlier we talked about some moments where other people got involved in their combat. It's mostly just those two fighting each other, but there are a few moments where people interfere. We talked about the one where Maekar gets him in the face riding by, and you can kind of see the damage on Dunk's helmet later. He's got like a big chunk missing. It might be from the Morning Star, but it might be from Maekar's mace. That's not from the book. No one interferes at all in the book. There's only minor interference here. Meanwhile, Arion gets knocked off Dunk when they're on the ground. I'm pretty sure that's Raymond that knocks Arion off. And then that person, who I think is Raymond, is immediately unhorsed by Stefan, who I'm sure was Stefan. Which that's why it kind of makes sense that it would be Raymond, not just partly because Raymond of almost everybody would be the one most concerned about Dunk, and because he would be facing off against Stefan. So that all makes sense. So even though the tragedy happens, here's a shot of it. Here's we can see the green apple. There it is. Look at that. You can quite clearly see Raymond's armor, very distinctive Gendry-like armor. Sorry, Podrick-like armor,
and Stefan's fancy apple armor.
Very fancy apple armor, yeah. And again, as I said before, people don't want to kill each other. And this is another example. Yes, Raymond doesn't want to kill Stefan. He wants to beat him and hurt him. In the book, he's like, I hope I broke some of his ribs. And Stefan does not want to kill Raymond. As much as a villain as he is, that was made clear very early on. And it doesn't even need to be made clear. Westeros is very strict about kinslaying. And it's been pointed out that this is going to be a famous thing. No matter what happens, this Trial of 7 is going to be famous. Is that what you want? To be made famous in a trial where you killed your own family? That is not what you want if you're a Westerosi. No, you don't want that at all. So Stefan is not trying to kill Raymond. Raymond's not trying to kill Stefan. They're just trying to take each other out. So that very much tracks, and it fits in with the whole thing of so many of them aren't trying to kill each other for the same reason. The Kingsguard aren't trying to kill the Targaryens. The Targaryens aren't trying to kill the Kingsguard. The Targaryens aren't trying to kill each other. And for the most part, Dunk's other side aren't trying to kill Maekar, and Daeron's just lying there on the ground. Like, they don't really want to kill each other. So that's, getting back to that a little bit. Let's talk about the crowd a little bit. With the moment where Dunk's getting back up, we talked about that from, we get more Sir Arlen, and Egg's epic, get up, sir, get up. But the crowd was saying up, up, up as he started to do it. And that was nice because some of you all may know, especially if you listen to our a preview episode for this one, that Ira Parker just straight up admitted, y'all, I screwed up. I didn't include the line about who are they to me? Who am I to them? A knight who remembered his vows. He just didn't include that. He meant to include it. He said it was in an earlier version of the script. So this is sort of like that. This is the crowd getting into it for Dunk, the whole crowd. It kind of replaces Dunk saying that to Thunder in the book, but we also got that moment of Egg getting Thunder to charge initially when when Dunk freezes up at the beginning, and that kind of calls back to episode 3 where Egg is training with Thunder in the morning. So yeah, like that. Let's see.
People were asking about whether we saw the moment, and I do have it on screen.
Yeah. So there's 2 moments. One is less important, but Ashay is bringing the important one up on screen. You can also see the moment where Maekar breaks the front of Baelor's helm because his visor's cracked from the front and from the back. So the back, of course, you can see the back blow. Right, I guess Ashay is putting it up right now. Yeah, and this was actually visible in the trailer. So, so if you knew what to look for, you could see this moment. You know what makes this moment extra sad? This is not made clear in the book. It's not made not clear either. But see how he's dragging Aerion across the ground? It's over. That's when Baelor takes the blow to his head. It's already over. It's just nobody knows it yet except the 2 main guys. So that's like just a little extra note of really did not have to happen, which becomes a big part of episode 6. Dunk like, why did this happen? Why? So this makes it hit a little harder. The fact that it was done. It was over.
Yeah, it makes it so much more tragic. But boy, what a great shot. What great imagery. So satisfying of Dunk dragging Aerion through the mud there. Just able to just pull him. Also reminded me of Daemon and the crab feeder.
Ooh, right on.
In House of the Dragon.
And of course, that is what happens in the book. He does drag him to the viewing stand. Very similar. Here's a line from the book also that is ominous in retrospect. When he's looking around as he's dragging Aerion, or just before he starts dragging, he takes stock of what's happening around him. It's one of the few times he's able to look at the other action on the field. It says, mace, battle axe, and longsword clashed and clanged, ringing against helm and shield. Yeah, helm, all right. Yeah. The dragon was dead, but you were alive. Our last section, the death of Baelor, it was well done. It stuck extremely close to the source material, as so much else of the season did, while taking full advantage of what TV can do that books can't. Visceral grief, anguished words, crying, and our own attachment to the performances building up through the season. Like we get a little more personal with the characters when we learn about them in a different way, when we see them in a different way, when we visualize them, when we hear the sound of their voices. They become more human because, well, they literally are. Instead of imagine people on a book, they really are. They're not really the characters they're portraying, but we really see them. They're real people, and that means something. As we said earlier, Dunk is concussed. It's the clues are there in the book. It's a little more obvious here, which makes sense because you can't hear his inner thoughts, which are also very jumbled. But in the book, he's in horrible pain and desperation. But, you know, the narrator isn't like slipping and crying or whatever. It's so it's still like the level of visceral is different. Now, you all know I don't have to explain the difference between audio and visual, but or book and show, but it's interesting to take note of how it was used here and so effectively, in addition to how well it stuck to what was already a perfectly written scene. As usual, Dunk is firstly concerned about everybody else, even though he's in massive pain, and everybody else is like, oh man, look at the rings jammed in here by the lance, which is straight from the book. He asks who else is dead. Like we said before, it's very similar. He's told that Beesbury and Humphrey and Harding are killed. In the book, Harding just dies a few days later. He finds, in the book, he asks about Daron. Here he does not ask about Daron. They just skip over that. Partly because it's an internal narrative these happen. He's like, a dragon must have died, right? Because of the prophecy. Is Daron dead? And they're like, no, Daron's fine. It's like, well, then the prophecy was wrong. Unless Aryon's dead. Did I kill Aryon? He's so confused. He's like, has to think for a second. Did I kill Aryon? He says it out loud in the book, and Egg says, no, you didn't kill Aryon. Don't you remember? But that's why he's thinking about it. He's like, the prophecy. So you can't quite do it here because it's thoughts he's having. So instead, you know, they just rely on some visual cues and the intonation and the brilliant acting, which really just carries it. The way Bertie Carvel handles a scene is so perfect. It's so much like it's ripped from the page. The lines are the same. The way he stutters, it's written almost identically to what George wrote. Let's have a quick quote before we get to breaking it down. Everybody should weigh in here because it's so well done. It's in the book. Dunk is confused and concussed, and that's why it helps conceal what's really going on here. His confusion masks the horror that's about to be unleashed.
Did you skip one?
This one. Get him drunk? Yeah.
Get him drunk and pour some boiling oil into it, someone suggested. That's how the maesters do it.
Wine.
The voice had a hollow, metallic ring to it.
Not oil. That will kill him. Boiling wine. I'll send Maester Yormwell to have a look at him when he's done tending my brother. So there's all these clues here mixed in with the chivalry of you clearly need tending more than your brother, my friend. But the hollow metallic ring thing where something's wrong with his voice. And then just after that passage, Dunk notices that his voice sounded oddly slurred. Perhaps he bit his tongue. You know, he's trying to like understand. And Bertie just captured it so perfectly. Dunk is in the book. Dunk is confused about who's speaking. In fact, it turns out to be Steely Pate who has that line about the boiling oil. But in the book, he doesn't even know who says that. The way here it becomes clear something isn't right. You know, he says, "My fingers feel like wood," exactly like the book. The way he kind of stutters, and the same thing he does when his visor is cracked. The way he looks at Raymond and says, "Brother's mace, most like." He's strong. That just killed me. It's just like, he's just like leaning in like, you know what I mean, man? You know, like my brother sure is strong. Like he's chivalrous to the end. There's a moment at the end, I don't know if Ashea caught it on the screen. I caught it near the end here where he just, when the horn blows, Baelor's like reaches out to shake his brother's hand. That's what it looks like to me, or is it bracing him? Like even though his like head is caved in here, it's crazy. So here's the book version of that, as Dunk is saying, I'm sorry," and as he does for Rafe and the Higher Tower Man. This is how it sets up. Book version.
A queer, troubled look passed across Baelor Breakspear's face, like a cloud passing before a sun. He raised his hand and touched the back of his head with 2 fingers, oh so lightly, and then he fell. Dunk caught him. "Up, they say," he said, just as he had with Thunder in the melee. "Up, up!" But he never remembered that afterward, and the prince did not rise.
It's an effective way to do it in terms of the book. Here, of course, they're not going to skip that. We're going to go straight to the funeral next episode, but it cuts off here very effectively mid-grief, very much mimicking how it handles in the book. Sean, I've gone through the scene. Tell us what you think. How did it make you feel? What have you to say about it in general?
Yeah, it was, I don't know how to say this, bittersweet. A large percent of this episode was so tough and violent and dark and it's kind of like, I think we talked before about how I know it's going to happen, but maybe this time it'll go different, like
it'll zigzag.
Yeah, it's like just kind of dreading it, and but both his death and the sort of violence, the realization, the sadness that the people around him are going to face, everything. Yeah, it was done really well. I wonder how people who hadn't read the book, maybe weren't quite anticipating it. I just felt kind of sick to my stomach knowing what was about to come. But I wonder if you didn't know that, if you might have been distracted by Dunk's injuries or the other guys that got killed, and I don't know. I should talk to my sister's watching it. She hasn't read the book, so I'll see what she says. But another thought I want to say is it's something that George does so well, and is that there's like something that's, I don't know how to say this, unanswered or mysterious. Sometimes you don't even realize that it's a mystery. And George is just like delivering the answer. It's like, here's the answer right in front of your face, and you don't get it. You know what I mean? Kind of like when Raymond's telling Dunk about Makar's kids, and they're, well, this kid and this kid and this kid, and the fourth one, and Egg comes running in, and like, oh, Egg is the fourth one, like, and in that one, pretty quick after that moment, you get the reveal. Same thing here. Dunk's scrolling through his mind. Well, if Darren's fine, and I don't think I killed Arryn, like, well, which Targaryen could it have been? And here comes Baylor walking in, and it's like, pretty quick after you get the answer, but it is still a great technique George has of delivering the answer with the question, sometimes not even knowing that it is a question.
Yeah, I would also like to point out how well it was filmed in terms of the horror on the faces that you see. Raymond's reaction, Steely Pate's reaction, you see Egg, you see all of these things to really ramp up your dread until you actually do see it. And it's like wondering what's wrong is just as scary as actually seeing his like caved in brain, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. They dialed down Steely Pate's reaction to build it the moment a little more gradually, because in the book, Steely Pate just starts basically yelling. You're like, Gods be good, Gods be good. Here he's like, Gods be good. It's a lot more muted. And Raymond, I thought Raymond's was the most effective. He inches around, takes very small steps, like he doesn't want to see it, but he's got to look. So he doesn't just like peer around, he just like inches around, and then he slowly, his eyes widen, and then, like you said, then it cuts to Egg, and then it goes to Dunk, and he falls, and the prophecy is fulfilled. And it's a really great way to do it, because the prophecy is such a minor part of this. You could take the whole prophecy out and it would still hit really hard, but it's a good way to like mix in some of the mystical as part of the story without it really driving it, or no one made choices based on it, really, other than maybe Darren himself. But Darren still probably would have made the same choices, because he's not a fighter and isn't going to be pushed around by his father, not in that sense anyway. So, yeah, just a really, really well done thing. By the way, I meant to point this out earlier. This is kind of a non sequitur, but remember what Stefan said? He's like, oh, lots of men will want to fight in this on your side because of glory. No one did that. No one fought on Dunk's side for glory.
Lionel did, technically.
Lionel might. He's the closest one. Yeah, Lionel. There's a case to be made for Lionel.
Yeah, like, I guess it's glory. He doesn't like couch it in those terms, but he just thought it sounded fun. But he also wanted to, like, he wanted the thrill of the fight, right? Yeah, exactly. But he also wanted to look good.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so he's the closest to that. Maybe you can make that argument for him, but for obviously for both the Humphreys, it was personal, or personal for one and personal in law for the other. Personal by marriage. For Robin Risling, it was religious, and for Raymond, it was, well, that's my friend. So that's kind of personal too.
For Risling, it was for the glory of the Seven.
Yeah, if madness is bid, is madness delivered? Just really wonderfully done. I'm so glad they treated it well. We'll talk in our wrap-up episode, which will be 2 weeks from now. We'll also talk a little more about Bertie Carvel's takes on this. He has some interesting things that he thought about in his own background, learning about the world and knowing how important this was. But I wonder if he knows just how important this was to us existing fans. And it's funny. I pointed this out. Like, we were all expecting. I was really curious about your friends and family's reactions, but honestly, it's the people who've already read it that are reacting the strongest because it was just so well done, and that's amazing, right? Like, we knew it. We knew it was going to come, and still, it's just. I watched it 5 times, and it was hard to watch it some of those extra times because it's so intense, and every time it got me, like every single time. Like the 5th watch, I'm still like, oh God, this is painful. This is emotional. Like, whew.
It's hard to go about your day or night after that. You're just kind of feel so dejected, so like all the wind out of your sails. Like even knowing, it just feels so. So disappointing for the realm,
it's good
for the
storytelling,
world, right?
Yeah.
Like,
He did
I don't
it
want
again.
this to be too negative, because again, I'm generally very positive about all of this. But I wonder if one reason why people who read the books maybe, or and this is kind of anecdotal, but why people who read the books might be hit harder than people who haven't is because I do think one thing I think the show has slightly failed at is building Baelor up so much. I feel like in the books he was built up to be more of a great fighter, more of a great hero, more of a charismatic leader. And it's not like the show didn't make him charismatic or whatever, but the book just did more so. And so I think it hit harder when he was killed.
I can see that because Dunk has this awe in his mind that's hard to replicate through other people's actions. Yeah. And his deeds are written more explicitly as to what he did. So yeah, I can kind of see that. But I do think from my anecdotal experience, the non-existing fandom reacted extremely positively to Baelor. So I think it still hit pretty darn hard. But I mean, I see what you're saying, that it hit harder maybe in terms of why it hit harder for the fandom. I can completely see that. Yeah. Okay, so Shay wants to show off some of the armor here, which I'm all for. We got some really cool shots. We commented earlier, as Bear is repeating, that it's well done that Baelor's armor doesn't quite fit right because it's not his armor. So well done there. And Lionel's helm looks sweet. I like the fact that the antlers broke because that makes it more realistic. Like people have said, like, "Boy, that must be really tough on the neck. It must be really heavy." Well, it doesn't have to be. They could be made really light to break. It could just be purely ornamental. We don't have to assume that it's just over the top. There could be some concession to functionality in that ornamentation. It's like, just let it break easily, then it won't be a problem. It's not the same as horned helmets for a Viking, that silliness.
Yeah, it would be much better for them to snap off easily, because if someone could hit those with their sword,
or like hook it or something,
if they don't break, it would yank your whole head and neck, and you would lose your sight, or maybe break or twist something. But if they hit it with a sword and just snaps right off, it's just you're unfazed by it.
I agree.
And I don't know, you got to keep in mind, I wish I knew a little better how much they weigh, but deer really have them on their head and they run at 30 miles an hour or 50 miles an hour. I don't know.
True. What's the next one, Shay? What do you guys? I love Daron's fear here. We only got like a second of Daron, but it's him just going. He's like, okay,
and we get to see Daron's armor, which is what I thought was cool here, is that you see his armor and then his helm that he has, which is the dragon wing helm. It's a little bit different from the others. Cool. So we don't see much of it.
A little flash of a green plume or something on his helmet as he put it on. The image doesn't catch it, but did you notice that when you're watching?
No, I did not. I would love to see it. I'm hoping that we get the making of today, and we get to see a whole bunch of non-color graded shots of all this armor and on all that.
That's another thing we'll be able to talk about in the wrap-up episode, because they have been a little tardy with those making ofs, which often have a lot of detail and extra information and images of these armor and swords and castles and things that we really like to have extra nerdy detail for.
Yeah, they had one for the first episode, I think, pretty much right away. And then they didn't have one for the second, but then after the third, they had one which was second and third combined.
Yeah, that's why they did that. That they combined them because it was too related that they didn't want to split it because of the spoilers of it all.
And then it made sense. Okay, so then they'll do 4 and 5 combined, and then.
But are they? But are they?
They are. They haven't put it out yet.
I know exactly. I'm like, I'm checking YouTube constantly for this. But this is my other favorite armor. It is Stefan's apple armor. I do think it's very beautiful and cool and unique.
I've never seen apples look so cool. No one has ever made apples look so good, I swear. Not even Adam and Eve. Or Eve. Either of them. Or Apple computers, or none of them. None of them. They all pale in comparison. Stefan Fossman may be a jerk, but he's got swag. That should be his middle name. Stefan Swag Fossaway. The apple of swag. All right. So, any more armor? Or are we ready to move on? You got some? Ooh, look at that. I like the side view there. We looked at that one earlier, but it's really good. This is partly how I was able to tell what the order was of the combatants. Seeing this lineup, it's also very similar to the book version, perhaps identical. But the book version isn't explicit, so we don't know what the exact one was. As we pointed out in the review episode, the graphic novel has its own set of pairings which do not match the books in some ways, and then the show has its own version. There's like 3 or 4 different versions of the pairings, which in some ways tells you it's not super important, but it's still kind of fun to get into those details.
I wanted to say real quick, instead of crab apple, swag apple.
That's nice. So Corn Emperor Super Chat says jumping the mace, but waiting for egg and straw hat. Oh yeah, jumping the mace. They said jumping the gun. Nice, very good. Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully get some egg and straw hat next episode. Was that in the trailer? Egg and a straw hat?
Well, I don't want to say that much about the trailer, but we see Egg in a different hat, which shows us that Egg likes to wear hats. So I think it's foreshadowing for his straw hat. But we do see him in a cute little hat, and you'll see that next week.
Right on. So, friends and folks and fellow Westorians, definitely send us your thoughts, your impressions, your grief, your tears, how your friends and family experienced it as well. And we will certainly be back next week for the wrap up, or for the episode 6 rather, and the wrap up episode after that.
And if you don't check out our preview episodes, our last week's one had a couple of good segments that y'all might like. One talked about an interview where Dexter Sol Ancel potentially spoiled some stuff about Dunk. So check out the preview for that talk a little bit.
Summer Hall related.
Yeah, Summer Hall related. But we also talked about Ira Parker's AMA, which we briefly touched on here, but we talk about it in much more length there, including some of his favorite houses, favorite sigils, mistakes he's made, flashbacks we almost had, flashbacks we could have. That episode's about 30 minutes. It's on our feed. We will certainly talk about that again in our wrap up, but if you're raring to hear about it, check that episode out. We also talk about how Ira says that he has 10 to 12 stories beyond these first 3, like the outlines. So that's 15 seasons he could do, which is pretty crazy.
Wild. Hopefully could we possibly be that lucky? We'll see. Time will tell. Time will indeed tell. Our trivia question was, against which foe did Baelor earn the nickname Breakspear? The answer is Daemon Blackfire at the wedding tournament for Baelor's aunt Daenerys marrying Maron Martell. So that was pretty epic. Baelor and Daemon, when they were both teenagers, already prodigies, and showing what a little preview of what would be 2 of the main leaders in the Blackfire Rebellion some 8 years after that. Poll results. Which injury of Dunk's did you find the most cringe or shuddery or whatever? 10% said Morningstar to the head. 14% said double stab. 30% lance in the side. And 46% said knife through the hand. Yeah, the knife through the hand is hard to top because he pulled the knife through the hand, the lance he's pulling through, like he pulls it out. Like both of those are extra gruesome.
Yeah, he pulls the lance out too, but the hand, I mean, Your hand is so crippling.
Yeah, that was a little more like real. Like that's more likely to really happen in real life. Some sort of hand injury like that. Maybe not a knife going through it, but
have a knife go through your hand in our
yeah,
lives.
or like cut
You're
your
unlikely to ever have a lance in your
lances
stomach.
aren't involved in anything. Like when you deal with lances, like, oh, you work at medieval times? Okay, yeah, like that's about it.
Maybe cycling.
Yeah, Lance. Yeah, you got Armstrongs and all sorts of. Yes, good one, Sean. I would pay to see that though. Lances on bicyclists. Yeah, just like get those guys like modern jousting on those country bikes. What are those bikes called? Those touring bikes?
An ATV? No.
No, the ones they do those long, like huge races with the Lance Armstrong type bike.
I was like country bike.
What are those bikes called? I don't remember anyway.
I called them 10 speeds when I was a kid, but I don't know if that's what they would be called.
Yeah. Anyway, if y'all are interested in staying immersed, definitely check out our Hedge Night coverage. We did, the three of us did some Hedge Night, a whole read through years ago, and we put it back on our feed, back to the front. We also have reviews of the Sworn Sword and the Mystery Knight that are also 4 episodes long each, plus a wrap up at the end. And we have 2 episodes on Baelor Breakspear, so we have a lot of this content.
That's what's going to come out this week, right? You're re-releasing the Baelor episode, Baelor Breakspear, this Thursday and next Thursday?
That's right. They've been remastered, or will be by the time they're re-released, and they sound a lot better, a little cleaner than they were when they were originally released. That's nice, and it's probably been a while since y'all listened to those, if you ever did, because those were many years ago.
That's 2019.
2019, yeah. 7 whole years. Just like a trial of 7. See? The gods arranged it that way, as Sir Robin would say. If it's 7-year gap delivered, or gap bid, it's 7-year gap delivered. That's right. Any final thoughts, Sean or Ashea, on this epic episode that is now enshrined in the Hall of Fame of Game of Thrones episodes?
Worst birthday party ever.
Poor Gwen, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she'll be complaining about that till she's like, you remember, she's 50 years old. She's like, do you remember my 13th birthday? No, let me tell you.
How could you not? I had kind of a vague overarching thought that, I don't know, interesting, the tone shift. The first 3 episodes were very much lighter. You know what I mean? Lots more comedic and light. And in the 4th one, it wasn't as clear at that moment, but it did start to shift. You know what I mean? There weren't as many jokes, but it was a little heavier. But this one was just almost nonstop, dark, terrible, heavy, tragic, one bit after another. They made one little attempt at lightness. Maybe I'll give you.
What would you say? Which one would you say is that?
I was gonna say the telling egg, not the Robin egg wolf back, but also the puking.
Yeah, and the green fucking boy. That made me laugh.
Yeah.
You're muted. You're muted. You are muted.
Yeah, the way he said it, he was just like, he was so funny, so boisterous. Green fucking boys.
Also, Humphrey Beesbury's mustache is always innately comedic. The fact that he does that, and I will repeat your joke. How does he get that mustache? A honeycomb. We gotta share that. We gotta post that joke. It makes me laugh a lot.
That's right. I agree with you about the tone shift, Sean. That's very true, and that's the kind of topic we'll delve deeper on, and similar topic we'll delve deeper on when we get to the wrap up. But yeah, that's very, very, very intentional. It seems.
It makes me wonder about the next episode, because the next episode we're dealing with these deaths. It'll be Baelor's funeral. Like, a part of me wants to feel like this is a wholesome, lighthearted story. But man, it's also pretty dark and gruesome. And I don't feel they would, or I'm not sure I want them to leave it on such a dark, sad ending. I think that we want it to be hopeful and excited about the adventures that Dunk and Egg go on next. But also, I don't want them to neglect the sorrow and tragedy of what happened. So I think they've got a challenge set for them in this final episode. And we're curious how they handle it, tone-wise as much as anything.
100% agree.
That's something we should think about, and we could maybe think on and guess in our preview episode. What do we think the last shot of the season will be. I think Dunk and Egg walking together with the horses.
Riding off into the sunset.
Right, like walking together. Like a simple shop is maybe an easy guess, but I'm going to go out on a limb.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was picturing too, because it is kind of what the book does. So maybe something similar. It's not. You're probably not going to miss too often guessing that the show is going to do what the book did, because that track record so far is pretty strong in that regard. But yeah, I think this has a really strong ending. I think you all would agree. This is one of the great things about the story isn't just how much it makes you feel, but it has a good ending, a strong ending, a solid ending, which is just hard to do, as we know. Endings are hard. So I appreciate that this one is it.
Can I throw out?
Oh, well,
go ahead.
You can go ahead. I have two things to say, Sean.
Just a little speculation that I wonder. I'm not sure what I'd put the odds at. But if we might get a Bloodraven appearance I don't know how quickly the funeral will happen, how long it'll take Dunk to even be able to stand up and walk. If word would have gone to King's Landing about the fact that this Trial of Seven was happening.
Oh, it definitely did. That part definitely did. Because remember, in the book, it's King Daeron that decides what Baelor wears to his funeral. Daeron doesn't go,
that's right.
But he instructs them to not put him in armor. They're like, no, he should be wearing his court clothes or whatever. Yeah. So and we see from the trailer that there's some people there that probably weren't there at the tournament. So there probably is. And of course, Dunk is so badly wounded. He's got to sit around for a while to convalesce. There's that too, kind of implied. So
yeah.
What were your other points to share? Oh, sorry.
There's just a lot of demand, I think, from the fandom, and a lot of motivation to set future series up to have him make some sort of appearance, even if it's no dialogue, just standing there in a crowd of Targaryens at the funeral. But I bet greater than 50% chance. I kind of expect it to happen.
Oh, I was going to say, we have two super chats to address here from Jillsville. It's from Jillsville, who gives us a thanks sticker, and from Corn Emperor, who says, burn the Breakspear and Dragonfire. Yeah, we do think we will be seeing a Targaryen funeral complete with not Dragonfire, but fire, right? They don't have a dragon with which to burn him. But so I think we'll see a change, a new era of a Targaryen funeral. We know we will, in fact.
I think use a flamethrower instead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to say,
a dragon puppet breathing fire.
The other thing I wanted to say was that if you don't follow us on TikTok or Instagram, we release edits and behind the scenes stuff from the shows. That's what we use our Instagram and TikTok reels for. This week, I made a fan edit to House by Charlie XCX, which is a TikTok sound that's been going around lately. And I think I'm gonna die in this joust. And I would love it if you checked it out, because I think it's funny and heartbreaking all at the same time.
All right, everybody. On behalf of Sean and Ashea, we will see you all again soon. Thanks to Bran the Builder for our awesome, fun intro. And you know what to do. This is a good time as ever for a Valar re-readus.